The Galactic Council Chamber, an architectural marvel floating at the edge of a dying star, hummed with tension. Representatives from a dozen alien species sat in their respective pods, arranged in a spiraling amphitheater that encircled the council floor. The air shimmered with the faint scent of ozone and indignation, the latter emanating predominantly from one source, a Zarnathian warlord named Captain Darnok. "They're cowards," Darnok declared, his booming voice reverberating through the chamber. His massive form was barely contained by his ceremonial armor, and his reptilian features twisted into what his species probably thought was a sneer, but looked suspiciously like indigestion. The humans hide behind diplomacy and words. They have no claws, no honor. They're afraid of true combat. A ripple of agreement murmured through the assembly. The Zarnathians were a warrior race, bred for battle and naturally distrustful of anything that didn't involve bloodshed. For years, humanity had been the subject of ridicule in the Galactic Council, their reputation reduced to that of overly polite, squishy bipeds who preferred peace treaties to plasma cannons. Ambassador Kira Monroe, humanity's representative, adjusted her impeccably tailored suit and smiled. "Captain Darnok, I find it curious that you mistake wisdom for cowardice. If memory serves, humanity was invited to the Council after resolving the Alpha Centauri trade war without firing a single shot. Negotiation, I might add, is often harder than throwing a tantrum with lasers." Darnok's eyes narrowed, and a hiss escaped his jagged teeth. "Words will not save you this time, Ambassador. The Council has decreed it. Your species must prove its worth. A champion will face our greatest warrior in single combat. Or perhaps you'd rather surrender now." Kira's smile widened, and for a brief moment, there was a glint in her eyes, something sharp and dangerous that didn't match her otherwise serene demeanor. "Oh, we'll send a champion, Captain. Rest assured." Darnok barked a laugh, the sound grating like metal on stone. "A champion? From your species? Will you send one of your poets? Perhaps a gardener armed with pruning shears?" The chamber erupted in laughter, a cacophony of alien sounds ranging from clicks to guttural roars. Even the stoic Archlorians, who resembled bioluminescent jellyfish, pulsed in a rhythm that suggested amusement. Kira waited for the noise to subside, her expression unchanging. When she spoke, her voice carried the calm confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. "Captain, you underestimate humanity at your own peril. We've already chosen our representative." The laughter stopped. Darnok tilted his massive head, intrigued despite himself. "You've already chosen? Who?" Kira glanced around the room, savoring the suspense. "You'll meet him soon enough." Later, as the session adjourned, Kira made her way back to her quarters aboard the human delegation's ship. She tapped her communicator, and a holographic screen blinked to life, revealing the face of Admiral Connor Hayes, a grizzled man whose expression seemed permanently stuck between exasperation and pride. "Well," he asked. "They took the bait," Kira replied, pouring herself a glass of something amber and probably too expensive for her budget. Darnok couldn't resist. "The duel is set, and they don't know who we're sending?" Kira smirked. "Not a clue. They're expecting a scholar or a bureaucrat. Maybe a biologist with a particularly aggressive microscope." The Admiral leaned back in his chair, his grin matching hers. "Good. Commander Hayes is ready." Kira raised her glass. "Here's to giving the galaxy a little reminder of what humans are capable of." The next few days were a media frenzy. News of the challenge spread like wildfire, and every corner of the galaxy buzzed with speculation. Talk shows, debates, and betting pools sprang up overnight. The odds heavily favored the Zarnathians. After all, their warriors were genetically engineered for combat, and humanity had yet to prove it could do more than host tedious diplomatic banquets. Jason Hayes, the Navy SEAL chosen to represent humanity, watched the coverage from a dimly lit room aboard the delegation's ship. The screen flickered with images of Captain Darnok smashing through combat dummies and snarling for the cameras. Analysts dissected every possible outcome, and none of them were optimistic about humanity's chances. Jason didn't seem bothered. He sat cross-legged on the floor, methodically cleaning his combat knife. His calm was almost eerie, like a predator that didn't need to announce its presence. His commanding officer, Colonel Reyes, leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "You're famous now," Reyes said, nodding toward the screen. Jason glanced up briefly. "I didn't sign up for fame." "No, you signed up to protect Earth. And now you're doing it on the biggest stage there is." Jason set the knife aside and stood, his movements fluid and deliberate. "It's just another mission." Reyes chuckled. "Keep that attitude. The Council expects a show, and Darnok's going to give it everything he's got. He wants to humiliate us." Jason tilted his head, a faint smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. "Good. That'll make it more fun." Reyes shook his head. "Just don't kill him too quickly. We need to milk this for maximum effect." As the day of the duel approached, the anticipation reached a fever pitch. The neutral planet hosting the event, a desolate rock with a conveniently dramatic skyline, was swarmed by spectators and media crews. The arena, a colossal structure carved into a mountainside, loomed like a monument to violence. The Galactic Council gathered in their VIP box, a hovering platform with a perfect view of the carnage to come. Kira Monroe took her seat, unbothered by the whispered doubts from her alien counterparts. She sipped her drink, something non-alcoholic, given the stakes, and waited. When the day finally arrived, the arena was packed to capacity. The air was thick with anticipation and the pungent smell of various alien snacks. Captain Darnok entered first, greeted by deafening cheers. He raised his massive arms, basking in the adoration. His armor gleamed under the artificial sunlight, and his weapon, a massive war axe, looked like it could cleave a starship in two. Then came Jason. He walked into the arena wearing a sleek, black exosuit that hugged his lean frame, a stark contrast to Darnok's hulking presence. His only weapon was a compact plasma blade strapped to his side. The crowd fell silent, their expectations visibly plummeting. Darnok laughed, the sound echoing ominously. "That's your champion? I've seen sturdier prey on jungle moons." Jason looked up at the Zarnathian, his expression unreadable. Then, in a voice calm enough to unsettle even the bravest soul, he said, "You talk too much." The crowd gasped. Darnok's laughter stopped. Kira, watching from above, allowed herself a small smile. It was going to be a very interesting fight. The arena was a monument to excess, a colossal structure built to host the galaxy's most brutal contests. Its walls were studded with energy crystals that glowed ominously, bathing the sands below in a harsh, alien light. Spectators from dozens of species filled the towering stands, a rainbow of scales, feathers, and bioluminescence. The atmosphere was electric, part excitement, part bloodlust. Captain Darnok entered the arena first, and the crowd erupted. The Zarnathian warrior was a spectacle of muscle and menace. His ceremonial armor gleamed like polished obsidian, adorned with jagged battle scars that served as trophies. He carried an axe that seemed to have been forged for the sole purpose of obliterating hope, its blade thrumming with latent energy. Every step he took sent tremors through the sand, as if the planet itself was cowering. Darnok raised his axe high, basking in the deafening cheers. He turned slowly, making sure every spectator saw him. His species thrived on intimidation, and he was a master of the art. When he finally lowered the weapon, he locked eyes with the Galactic Council's VIP box. His gaze lingered on Ambassador Kira Monroe, and his lips curled into a smile that was all teeth. "Where is your champion, human?" Darnok's voice boomed across the arena, amplified by hidden speakers. Did he get lost on the way to his doom? The crowd laughed, and even a few of the more stoic species allowed themselves a chuckle. It was the kind of joke that practically wrote itself. Humanity's champion, lost or late, probably stuck asking for directions. Then, the arena gates groaned open. Jason Hayes stepped into the light, and the atmosphere shifted. The laughter didn't stop immediately, but it stumbled. He walked with a predator's confidence, every movement controlled and deliberate. His black exosuit hugged his frame like a second skin, its matte finish designed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A compact plasma blade hung from his belt, almost an afterthought compared to the arsenal Darnok carried. Jason didn't wave, didn't posture. He simply walked to the center of the arena and stopped, standing straight as a spear. He tilted his head slightly, scanning the crowd with the dispassionate gaze of someone who had seen worse things in darker places. The effect was unsettling. Darnok's amusement returned, though it was tinged with something sharper. "You brought a toothpick to a war, human. Brave, but foolish." Jason's reply was a single word. "Predictable." Darnok blinked. "What?" "Your insults." "They're predictable," Jason said, his tone casual, almost conversational. "You talk a big game, but I'm guessing most of your victories are because your opponents were too busy listening to you to notice how slow you are." The crowd gasped. Insulting a Zarnathian warrior to his face was considered a death wish. Jason apparently had skipped that memo. Darnok's nostrils flared. "You'll regret that." "Let's find out," Jason said, rolling his shoulders. "I'm on a tight schedule." The arena's overseer, a towering insectoid with too many eyes and not enough patience, raised a spindly limb. "Combatants, prepare." Darnok readied his axe with a flourish that sent sand flying. Jason didn't move, his hands resting loosely at his sides. The overseer's limb twitched downward. "Begin!" Darnok exploded into motion, a blur of muscle and fury. He closed the distance in an instant, his axe coming down in a diagonal arc that could have split a starship hull. The crowd held its breath. Jason wasn't there. The axe struck empty sand with a thunderous crash, sending debris flying. Jason had sidestepped the attack with inches to spare, his movements so smooth they seemed almost lazy. He didn't retaliate, he simply stepped back again, forcing Darnok to reset. The Zarnathian snarled and lunged, swinging his weapon in a wild, horizontal sweep. Jason ducked beneath it, the blade passing just above his head. Again, he didn't counter. Instead, he circled his opponent like a shark, his expression calm. "Is that it?" Jason asked. "I thought you were supposed to be scary." Darnok roared, more from frustration than fury. He launched into a flurry of attacks, each swing heavier and more desperate than the last. But no matter how fast or brutal the strikes, Jason was never where Darnok wanted him to be. He moved like smoke, ungraspable, untouchable. The crowd, initially confident in Darnok's dominance, began to shift. There were murmurs now, whispers of confusion. How could a human be this fast, this precise? Even Kira, watching from the VIP box, couldn't help but feel a flicker of pride. Finally, Darnok overextended. His axe bit into the sand and stuck, the weight too much for even his massive frame to control. Jason didn't waste the opportunity. He closed the distance in a heartbeat and planted a boot against the flat of the axe blade, wrenching it free and sending it skittering across the arena floor. Darnok stumbled off balance. Jason didn't press the attack. He stepped back, giving his opponent room. "Pick it up," Jason said. "I don't want any excuses." The crowd erupted again, this time with cheers. They loved a good show, and Jason was delivering. Darnok retrieved his axe, breathing heavily. "You think this is over?" "No," Jason said. "I think it's just getting started." Darnok charged, his movements more calculated this time. He was learning, adapting. Jason met the charge head-on, dodging the axe and delivering a swift kick to Darnok's knee. The Zarnathian staggered, but didn't fall. They traded blows, Darnok's brute strength against Jason's speed and precision. Sand flew, sweat dripped, and the air was filled with the sounds of combat. Then, the tide turned. Jason feinted left, drawing Darnok into a clumsy swing. He darted right and swept the Zarnathian's legs out from under him. Darnok hit the sand hard, his axe tumbling from his grip. Before he could recover, Jason was on him, his plasma blade igniting with a sharp hiss. The blade hovered inches from Darnok's throat. The crowd went silent. Darnok's eyes widened. For the first time, there was no bravado, no arrogance, only shock. "Yield," Jason said. Darnok hesitated. Then, slowly, he raised a hand in surrender. The overseer stepped forward, her many eyes gleaming. "The human is victorious." Cheers erupted from the stands, louder than anything before. Jason deactivated his blade and stepped back, offering a hand to Darnok. After a long moment, the Zarnathian accepted it. You fought well, Darnock admitted grudgingly. Jason gave a half-smile. You too. Just work on the trash talk. As the crowd roared, Kira leaned back in her seat, satisfied. The galaxy had just learned something important about humanity. And the best part? This was only the beginning. The arena's energy was still electric, even after the declaration of Jason's victory. Spectators from every species filled the air with an orchestra of bewildered cheers and chatter. For the first time, the Galactic Council had seen humanity in a different light, agile, strategic, and perhaps a little too cheeky. The sand beneath Jason's feet was scattered with debris from Darnock's failed assaults, but the human seemed as relaxed as if he'd just finished a light jog. Darnock stood opposite him, still panting, hands resting on his knees. He wasn't used to being outmaneuvered, certainly not by a human. Jason waited patiently, arms folded, his calm demeanor doing little to soften the sting of defeat. Was that really necessary? Darnock growled at last, straightening to his full, towering height. Jason shrugged. You tell me, was bringing an axe the size of a hovercar necessary? The Zarnathian snorted, half amusement, half lingering frustration. You're different from what I expected. Flattery will get you everywhere, Jason deadpanned. Darnock, for all his bravado, cracked a reluctant grin. Don't push it, human. Ambassador Kira Monroe descended from the council's VIP box, her sharp heels clicking against the stone path with military precision. She'd spent the entire match watching with a mixture of pride and mild exasperation. Now, standing in the arena's center, she surveyed the aftermath. Captain Darnock, congratulations on managing to lose with such theatrical flair. The Zarnathian scowled but said nothing. Jason gave a mock bow. I aim to please. Kira sighed. You didn't have to taunt him so much. Come on, Kira. The council expected me to be cannon fodder. If I didn't throw in some banner, they'd think I wasn't taking things seriously. Darnock grumbled something under his breath, though there was no malice in it. He'd learned two important things today. 1, never underestimate a human. And 2, humans could be infuriatingly smug. The council overseer, the insectoid referee with far too many eyes, floated into view. Her thin, reedy voice amplified across the arena. The duel has concluded. By the laws of combat and honor, humanity's champion is victorious. In the stands, the alien spectators roared with approval. Kira could see the gears turning in their collective minds. These were beings used to assessing strength through the lens of physical domination. Now they had witnessed something new, victory through adaptability, wit, and restraint. Captain Darnock stepped forward, extending a massive, clawed hand toward Jason. The silence that followed was deafening. No Zarnathian warrior had ever offered such a gesture to an opponent. Jason didn't hesitate. He clasped Darnock's hand firmly, and for a moment, there was a strange, mutual respect between the two. It was the sort of handshake that said, "You were annoying, but I'll give you this one." The overseer's multifaceted eyes darted between them, a demonstration of mercy and honor. Unexpected, but commendable. Kira hid a smirk behind her hand. That's humanity in a nutshell. Unexpected, but commendable. As they exited the arena, the chatter around them intensified. Alien dignitaries who had once scoffed at humans were now leaning into conversations, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Jason, walking a step behind Kira, couldn't help but overhear some of it. Did you see how fast he moved? No warrior should be that quick. They defeated a Zarnathian with strategy, not brute force. They didn't kill him. Mercy and victory. Fascinating. Jason leaned toward Kira. I think we just became the most popular species in the council. Don't let it go to your head, she replied, though there was a spark of satisfaction in her eyes. A commotion near the exit drew their attention. An Andurian ambassador, an amphibious being with translucent skin, blocked their path, their gelatinous hands raised in a gesture of peace. Ambassador Monroe, may I extend a formal apology on behalf of those who doubted your species, the Andurian said, their voice a melodious hum. It seems we have much to learn about human resilience. Kira gave a gracious nod. Apology accepted. and I'm sure humanity would be more than willing to share its insights. The Andurian chuckled, a wet, bubbling sound. Indeed, perhaps we could discuss a new alliance, one based on mutual respect. Darnock, still trailing behind with his battered pride intact, let out a low grunt. If anyone asks, tell them I'm fine with the outcome. But I'll be training harder next time. Jason raised an eyebrow. Training harder? For what? For the rematch, Darnock said without hesitation. Jason grinned. Looking forward to it. The arena gates slid shut behind them, and the group made their way to the Galactic Council chamber for a formal post-duel review. By the time they arrived, the chamber had transformed. What was once a place of judgment had become a space of curiosity and possibility. Delegates leaned toward each other, discussing humanity's sudden rise from the Council's punchline to its newest wild card. Kira stepped forward, addressing the assembly with the poise of someone who had just aced the galaxy's toughest test. Members of the Galactic Council, today's duel was not just about victory. It was about proving humanity's place in this coalition. Jason crossed his arms and muttered, "We're great party guests, too." "Shoo," Kira whispered before continuing. Humanity's strength doesn't lie in brute force. It lies in our adaptability, our resourcefulness, and yes, our occasional ability to surprise. Captain Darnock gave a reluctant nod. Surprise is one way to put it. The overseer clacked her mandibles. The council will convene to discuss humanity's new status. But I suspect no further discussion is necessary. Jason leaned in again. Does this mean we get better parking spots at council meetings? Kira shot him a look. Jason, just checking. As they exited the chamber, Kira finally allowed herself a rare smile. Well, Commander Hayes, I think you've done more for humanity's reputation in one day than the entire diplomatic corps has in 50 years. Jason gave a playful shrug. All in a day's work. They stepped into the cool air outside, where the twin suns of the neutral planet dipped below the horizon. The galaxy, once so sure of humanity's insignificance, was now abuzz with possibility. And for the first time, Jason felt something he hadn't expected: hope. Humanity's place in the stars had just been rewritten, and they'd only just begun.